Hey guys, what's up? It's Mullen here. I'm here to make a video describing how I see the different schools of magic. Okay. Now, I'm gonna start with Storm because obviously, I'm a Storm wizard, right? And I'm not gonna, do how I see the schools of magic in via stats or via how they play or how well they can survive. I'm going to do them based off of what our spells look like. The sense, the sense of emotion, the sense of feeling that each school has with their own spells. And obviously, like I said, I'm going to start with Storm. And as I'm going to start with Storm, I'm going to go ahead and mention that the sense that I get from Storm spells is a sense of danger, but beauty at the same time. Now I'm going to go ahead and explain. I'm going to give you reasons for this. The first reason I have to give you is if you look at a spell like, let's see, if you look at a spell like Tempest, right? Whenever you think about in real life a hurricane, for example, if you're in that hurricane, it's dangerous. Obviously, this thing is going to come and crash on top of me. It's going to kill me. But if you are far enough away, or if you are the one, obviously, if you're the one causing the hurricane, like storm wizards, for example, if you're not the one being hit by the hurricane, it's beautiful. I mean, heck, I'm pretty sure there's people who, they die from the hurricane or whatever. They've accepted that fate, so instead of, complaining about it, or instead of freaking out, now, no disrespect to any of the people who have died from hurricanes, I'm just saying, if you're gonna die, you might as well die happy, Why die miserable? Die knowing that you died from something that, was created by this beautiful thing that we have called nature. That's all I'm saying. Now, Storm Wizards, what I get from them is I get that sense of beauty and danger. Alright. For example, the spell like Tempest, it connects with that hurricane situation. Now, another example I'm going to give is Sirens, right? You have these three scantily dressed women, or mermaids, sitting on a rock. Now, whenever you think back to Greek mythology, right? They have that story about the sirens, and the sirens being, you hear these beautiful voices singing to you, and these sailors would, they'd crash their ships into those rocks, and then the sirens would tear them apart and kill them, or bring them down to the sea and, eat them. And, it's that sense of beauty. These sirens, their voices are so beautiful that they can literally be dangerous. They can take control, more or less, of a sailor's mind, or they can put the sailor to sleep, and the sailor ends up crashing his ship, killing his entire crew, and they take the sailor down, and they tear him apart. They take the captain down, and they tear him apart. They take the people working on the boat, the deckhands, they take them down and tear them apart. Beautiful sirens, beautiful mermaid-looking things, sparkly tails made of like jewels or whatever, fish fins, and rainbow colored. Rainbows are beautiful. And then their voices, it's like this beautiful voice ringing out into the sky, But it's dangerous, because if you go near a siren, you're gonna die. It doesn't matter who you are or what you are, you're gonna die. Now, another thing is, and I'm going to give you one last example for Storm, and this example is Leviathan. Now, some people are going to probably say, not all of the Storm spells have that sense, but they all do. And I'm going to do a quick run through all these Storm attacks, at least. I'm going to do a quick run through of the Storm attacks. Thunder Snake, it's like the snake that has yellow eyes, and whenever you think of a cobra, which is kind of what Thunder Snake is, whenever you think of a cobra, you think of like voodoo stuff. You think of mysterious rituals and stuff, right? And honestly, you would think that would fit into death, but I'll get into death later. Death has nothing to do with that whenever you think far enough into it. Now, whenever you look at Thundersnake, for example, it's this mysterious cobra type thing. So I already explained that. Lightning bats, it's like a vampire type situation, right? Bats have always been known, they've been known to be in horror stories, or if you walk into this mysteriously dark cave that you don't know what's in there, it's the sense that if you go in there, it may be beautiful. Whatever you see may be beautiful. The cave itself might be beautiful. But whatever's in there, while it might be beautiful, it might kill you. It might hurt you. It might be dangerous. You don't know. And it's that sense of discovery as well. Discovery in the eyes of a human is something beautiful alone. It's not just what you find. It's the fact that you might be discovering something new. Whether it's ugly or not, it doesn't matter. It's beautiful because it's something new. We don't know it exists yet. So when we're walking into that dark cave and all of a sudden this lightning bat pops out and zaps us to death, it's like, oh, I just discovered a bat that zaps me to death, but I'm gonna die before I have the chance to tell anyone, you know? Hopefully you have some people with you if you actually ever do discover that. Then you have a spell like Insane Bolt, right? It's like a lightning storm, okay? You get too close to a lightning storm, you might get struck by lightning. You might get struck by lightning. But if you're fighting someone, if you're fighting someone else, and you're in this field of lightning, you might get struck by lightning, but you're in the middle of fighting someone else, so your opponent might get struck by lightning too, and you might survive. And once your opponent gets struck by lightning, he might die. He or she might die. And then you can get out of there as fast as you can. So that's how I see the whole Insane Bolt situation. Now with Wild Bolt, okay. I can't really say anything about Wild Bolt. Insane Bolt, all I'm going to say about Insane Bolt is it's kind of like a lightning storm type situation. I guess the Wild Bolt would be like its baby brother, which is like, a small lightning storm. There's a few lightning strikes here and there, and if you just happen to be in the way, if you're far enough away, you might get hit just barely. If you're closer, you might have a heart attack, but they revive you. Or if you're too close, it could be lethal, Storm Shark. Whenever you go into the ocean, what do you think whenever you go to the ocean? You think, okay, I wonder what I'm going to discover today. I wonder what new things I'm going to see today. If I've never seen a great white shark in my life, and I go into the water and I see a great white shark, I'm going to be amazed because I've never seen that before. It's beautiful, although it's probably going to tear me limb from limb. Some might not, some might. And that's also why Storm is one of the most luck-based schools in the game. It makes sense. Because Storm is that beautiful but dangerous type school. And then there's always going to be a bit of a chance that you might actually get out of something alive, depending on if you play your cards right. For example, with the sirens, now I know it's very highly unlikely, and I don't think in the stories, well, no, because actually Perseus or whatever, if you've read what is it, the Iliad? No, if you've read the Odyssey, and it's not Perseus, it's Odysseus. Odysseus, I think it is. Was it Odysseus? I don't know. It's one of them. They end up plugging their ears whenever they go sail past the sirens, right? I mean, it's the intelligent move to make. He has his crew members tie him up to the post. His crew members more or less all die because they jump off the ship. But, he's tied to the ship. He can't hear the sirens singing. He played his cards right. He just survived. I guess the earplugs would be the equivalent of a storm shield. Anyways, so moving on. Oh, sorry. Moving on. Let's go ahead and get past Storm. I think I've already made my point with Storm. I'm gonna go on the Fire now. Now, from Fire, I get a sense of burning pride. Now, yeah, I know I used burning, but that's what I get. I get a sense of burning pride whenever I see their spells. Their spells have a sense of pride. They have a sense of bravery. They have a sense of, if you attack me, I'm going to kill you. You will not survive this. And if I lose, I still have this burning sense of pride because I know that I lost fighting back. I didn't lose by running away. I didn't lose by trying to defend myself the whole time. I lost by fighting back. And I lost by fighting back good because I also have a decent sense of, defense along with it. My spells are good, but I'm able to keep myself well defended at the same time. So I'm not, I don't die as easy. So now I'm going to give you a few spell examples because like I said, I'm going to be seeing more into the spells than anything else and what the spells look like. So I'm actually going to start with Fire's new Test Realm spell. I'm going to go ahead and start with that one because what I see from Fire's new Test Realm spell is I see, Raging Bull. At first glance, you see that Raging Bull running down this tunnel into this giant arena. Now, this giant arena, obviously, it's a bullfighting pen or whatever. It's hard to tell or whatever, but this giant bull is ready to take on whatever is out there. It doesn't know what's out there, but it has it's ready for anything. You know, Storm is all cautious with what they do. Well, not cautious per se, but if you look at the spells and the dangerous and beautiful thing, we have to be cautious. It's how we master our school, right? You don't stick your finger you know, I mean, if you see lightning, you don't stick your finger up and say, "Here, strike me," and the lightning strikes you and you kill yourself. No. You run tests first. You have it hit other things, or you have it hit other people. Try, see what can, like something to pull the lightning in so that it doesn't hit you and instead it hits someone else. And with that, eventually you can learn how to control the lightning. You can learn how to control where it hits. Now, I know I'm going back in the storm, but fire is kind of along with that. The difference between it is, though, that fire will charge head on into that. Now, the reason that works for fire, the reason that fire is so good at charging head on into a battle, is because that they are able to keep their stats. They have that defensive stat, so they're able to know that if they go into a battle and they are ready to charge, that they cannot be beaten. They know that. They have that sense of pride, that sense of bravery, Raging Bull, like I said, the Raging Bull runs out into the arena ready to take on the bullfighter or the bull rider, and he literally stomps one of his front paws or whatever into the dirt and kicks the dirt back. He's all cocky and pissed off, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna beat your, there's nothing you can do about it. If you stand in my way, you're gonna go down." And I mean, even if you look at Fire's, one pip spell, Fire Cat. This little cat that's bursting with fire jumps out of the sky, lands on all four paws, and is like, if you get in my way, I'm gonna pounce on you, and it's not gonna look good for you, I mean, while it may not do that much damage, at low levels, just the spell animation itself is intimidating. Seriously, this little cat jumps out of the sky, and he's like, "Okay, you have two choices. You can either move, or I'm gonna pounce on you and I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna defeat you. You're going down. And if you try to, if you hurt me, then another one of me is coming, and we're just gonna keep coming. I'm so prideful. We are literally going to keep hitting you. Every time you defeat us, every time we don't defeat you, we're just gonna keep coming back. We're not gonna give up. We have this sense of pride, and you are going down. Now that I've given that to fire, I'm going to move on to ice, because ice has almost no connection to storm. But while fire does have a connection to storm, fire also has that connection to ice, because fire has that burning sense of pride that makes them never want to give up. And if you look at ice and their defensiveness, the difference between ice's not giving up and fire's not giving up is that whenever an ice wizard version of not giving up is not necessarily a sense of pride. It's more a sense of calmness, more or less. It's like the whole martial arts thing, if you get your heart beating too fast, if your adrenaline is too high, you're not going to know what's going on. You're just going to be fighting. You're going to be throwing punches, right? If you're throwing punches against a dude who's able to stay calm, who's able to defend themselves almost perfectly with almost the exact right moves, you aren't going to win. It doesn't matter how hard you punch. If that guy can defend himself against every one of your punches because his adrenaline is not rushing, he is taking things slow and he is taking things calm, you aren't going to get a single hit on that guy. You might dent him a little bit, but you're not going to dent him bad enough to the point where he is scared of you. It's not going to work. That's ice. They are calm. They are frozen in place. You cannot budge them. It's almost as if their feet are, stuck in the ice. You can't budge them. You can throw all the punches you want, but they are not going to throw punches back. They will sit there and they will defend themselves. So once you're worn out, Once you are worn out to the point that you can't do anything else, then they will throw a very hard punch. They will be ready for you, and when they're ready for you, you're gonna go down. That's the feeling that I get from ice. They're there to defend themselves. They're there to survive until you have nothing left, until you can do nothing else. So once you can do nothing else, that's their chance. They jump in and they kick your butt. Okay? Now, next I'm going to move on to life, because life has almost no connection to fire, but it does have a connection to ice. Because, now the thing I say about life, though, is it's more the Zen type of survival, you know? Ice is calm, it's like a martial arts type situation, but life, it's even calmer. And the thing about life is, if you look at life spells, they have even, you know, they usually have even less damage than ice. It's almost as if life was not meant to fight. You know, they rarely ever get that adrenaline rush because they rarely ever fight. They're there to heal. They are there to survive. With those heals and with that peaceful situation and that absolute calmness, it's all, they never, you know, their hits are bad, so why would they want to hit? Why would they be the hitter when there's all these other schools that hit for them? All these other schools who basically rely on that adrenaline, or that rely on that focused adrenaline, or that crazy adrenaline, focused being fire and random crazy being storm. When those schools are there, why would you want to risk your life when those schools have mastered that? They've learned how to deal with that. But life, on the other hand, is there to be peaceful. They're there to be, you know, calm. So calm, in fact, that they're even calmer than ice. Now, obviously, whenever you look at ice's resist, right? Ice has high resist. They actually would probably last longer in a PvP than, you know, life. But ice also attacks a lot. They use their hits, you know? They wait till you're worn out and they use their hits. But life will just, they'll heal you out. You hit, they heal. You hit, they heal. You hit, they heal. They have decent defense to back it up, so they use that defense to their advantage. They use that resist. They use their good block, and then they use their healing, incoming, and outcoming. And with that, they put almost, every time you dent enough damage into them that they get worried, they don't have to use that adrenaline. They don't have to use adrenaline at all, because they know that, you know, I might be about to die, but with the flick of a wrist, I can heal myself. All my health can be back, and there's no adrenaline that has to be involved. Now, obviously, I'm speaking more hypothetically, like, you know, if there were actually emotions involved in this video game in Wizard101, this is how they would go. This is how the spell emotions would go. You know, this is what we'd have to learn to master our schools. The emotions we'd have to conquer to master our schools. Now, from life, I'm going to go to death. Because with death, with the school of death, you know, I mean, everyone thinks that's gloomy and it's all sad and depressing. But what I see from death is I see a sense of trust. A sense of respect between their dead spells and them. Because whenever you think about it, if you've ever seen the TV shows or whatever, or the movies where all of these amateur people that get all sad because their grandma died and they go and try to summon their grandma from the dead, and their grandma eats them alive because they have no idea what they're doing, you know? Like, if you don't know what you're doing, you shouldn't be summoning the dead. Now, whenever you look at a death wizard, for example, they start out with the basic spells. They summon, you know, Dark Fairy, they summon Ghoul. All of these spells that are rather easy to master, especially whenever you look at Ghoul, it's basically just a little bit of an advanced version of a zombie. You know, they've summoned the zombie and they've learned to control it. Okay, I mean, a zombie being mindless and all, brainless or whatever, if a death wizard is able to, you know, attach their brain, well, their thoughts to that zombie's thoughts, you know, they can control it or whatever. Kind of like a psychic type link or whatever to the zombie. Now, whenever I'm talking about, you know, Ghoul or whatever, that spell, that's one of the reasons that I see that sense of respect, but not quite as much of respect as I see trust in that situation, you know, because I mean, if you think about it, Death, the only link between death and storm in certain aspects is that with death, I mean, you don't know if that zombie is going to turn against you or not. I mean, obviously in the game it doesn't actually turn against you, but you don't, if this game was real life, you wouldn't know. That zombie, you'd have that sense that, okay, if I do this wrong, if I don't know what I'm doing, then this will turn out bad for me. But if I do know what I'm doing, and I do it in a way that I know that that zombie will not turn against me, that goal will not turn against me, then I can control that goal, that zombie, and I can tell it what to do. The same thing with the Banshee. It keeps going on, and then eventually it gets a little bit more advanced. It gets so advanced to the point that around Azteca level, you have Avenging Fossil, and whenever you first meet the Avenging Fossil character or whatever, I've seen the spell quest, whenever you first do it or whatever, the Avenging Fossil has this sense like, why did you summon me? Are you really that stupid or whatever? And then you battle a boss, or I'm not sure if you battle him, but you battle a boss and all. And it's like, I mean, it's like, okay, you've trapped me. You've proven your worth to the point where I would love to work for you. Well, not work for you per se, but a mutual respect between that death spell and the death wizard, because that death spell is so ancient that it kind of has a mind of its own. It's like, I'm not mindless. I'm an intelligent dead creature. It's like, okay, I respect you because you were able to summon me. You've convinced me to help you. Blah 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 blah. So now I'm gonna help you. And it's that sense that death wizards have that maturity, that they know that everything's gonna die eventually. And I guess once their spells, if this was real life, like I was saying, if this was real life, their spells would recognize that they know this. The death spells would recognize, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. This girl knows that, that everything's gonna die eventually. Everything has its expiration date. So, knowing this, this wizard knowing this, I think I'm going to help them. I think I'm going to help them with their quest, because obviously, since everything has an expiration date, we might as well do everything we can to do, to leave a legacy while, before the expiration date comes. And while the expiration date might come eventually, I mean, what's the point of living if you can't do something for yourself or do something for someone else before your eventual death, which is going to come? So I'm going to help you make your life meaningful. The life school doesn't think about what happens after life is over. The death school thinks about both what happens during life and what happens during death. It has that sense of maturity. Okay? From death, I'm going to go to myth. Now, I want to say that myth has a sense of mystery, but I get more of a sense of mystery from storm, because like I said, you don't know you absolutely do not know what's going to happen. You don't know what you're going to expect whenever you're discovering something new from storm. So I guess from myth, it's that sense of folklore, that sense of history. Yeah, that sense of history that's involved. So whenever you look at spells like Baba Yaga has Slavic history. If you look at the mythology behind it, it has Slavic history. Russian history, I explained the Russian history in another video, so if you want to go check that out, because I really don't feel like explaining it again. It has, mythological backgrounds. It has that myth to it. The Cyclops spell, Greek mythology, has that sense, okay, this is history, this is folklore, this is mythology, these are stories that have been passed down from generation to generation. And what I see from that is, not only do I see a sense of legend, a sense of mythology, a sense of folklore, I see a sense of holding on to things that are important. Things that are important to you, If your grandpa, that passed away from cancer told you this story about someone, and he passes away, and you're like, okay, Gramps, I'm gonna hold that story in my heart for the rest of my life. And that's what you do. You hold that story in your heart for the rest of your life. And if you have children, you pass that story down to them And then once you die, then they realize, okay, I'm going to pass this down to my children. And it's that sense of holding on to this story, to these stories, to these legends, to these myths that keeps the myth wizards alive. These myth wizards are able to hold on to the spirit, more or less, of their spells. And once they're able to hold on to that, once they're able to hold on to their belief that these spells, that these myths could be true, then they will be able to summon these spells, you know? It's like a whole mind over body situation, you know? If you think you can do something, you know, in some situations, in some instances, you end up being able to do it. And us being wizards, them being myth wizards, and them having practiced this, like I said, again, theoretically or hypothetically, if this was reality, them having practiced that, them having practiced using their mind, you know, to believe in a Cyclops, and once they believe hard enough that that Cyclops is real, that that Cyclops exists, that Cyclops comes to life as a spell for them, and they're able to use that spell to their advantage. Same thing with spells like Celestial Calendar. Now, the thing about Celestial Calendar is it's kind of like the death situation, you know? You know, it's one of those where, are you worthy enough to gaze upon this calendar, you know? You have to prove yourself worthy enough to look at this calendar, because this calendar, it takes so much belief to believe that something this spectacular, something this historically amazing could actually exist. Something that was created thousands and thousands of years ago, that is so technologically advanced, that is so mythologically advanced, that is so magically advanced, that it can do the things that it can do, whatever it can do. That it can align, that it can predict the future, and that it aligns the worlds. That whenever the worlds of the spiral align, it shoots this beam out and destroys whatever is in its path. It's that sense that if I hold on to stories like that, that maybe whenever I actually come across, whenever I actually come to the point that, you know, stories like that might actually help me, that I will be able to believe in these stories, and that these stories will come true. I have to hold on to that. My parents, my great-grandparents, my great-great-grandparents, that story's been passed on so much, and they've believed in it so much, that eventually it's come down to me. And whenever it comes down to me, me, whatever, you're able to summon that belief. You're able to summon that spell from within your history, from within your spirit, from within your own mind, your own beliefs. And your own beliefs become your magic. They become your power. Your thoughts, your minds, your actions, whatever you do, they become your magic, basically. Now, I've gone through Storm, Fire, Ice, Myth, Life, and Death. The next one I'm going to go to is Balance. Now, what I see from, you know, Balance is this sense, okay, everything has a reason. Everything can be explained. Everything can be calculated. Everything has theories. It's like the more peaceful version of Storm, because if you think of Storm, it's like dangerous. It's beautiful and dangerous. Whenever you think about Balance, it's beautiful, but it's equal. It's beautiful because it's equal. It's beautiful because it's well organized, and it's beautiful because it's put into place. It's kind of like the two pots that you set outside your door, and they look so orderly and they look so in fashion. They're aligned almost perfectly. It's that sense that things being organized and things being equal make the world a better place. And that's where the sense that balance comes in. You know, balance is that sense. It's more of a sense not quite of holding on. It's not a sense of believing. It's not a sense of beauty and danger. It's not even just a sense of beauty, although it does have that sense of beauty. It's a sense of beauty, calmness, a sense of beauty and equality, a sense of beauty and equilibrium. It's a sense of beauty and balance, you know, keeping things in order. That's the sense I get from it. If things fall out of order, you have a situation where it becomes chaos. And the thing about it is, the reason I don't understand why they made chaos the Pigswick equivalent of the myth school, is because chaos and myth, if you think about the word chaos, it has nothing to do with myth. It's theoretically, if theoretically, hypothetically, if any of this was real, the emotions behind it would probably be different. Would probably be different than the reasons that we summon, that we use that we use these spells, that we choose our paths. You know, for myth, if you were going to choose your path, you're probably going to choose it because of that sense of chaos, that sense of things that are unorderly, that sense of things that you have to believe, and once you believe them to be true, then they actually come true. That sense of things that don't make sense, you know, believing in something and all of a sudden it magically comes true, you know, that doesn't make sense to people. There's no order in that. If I believe that the world's going to blow up and all of a sudden the world blows up, where's the order in that? That just causes chaos in the world, you know. If that world's gone, all of a sudden, if there's other worlds around it, they're like, oh, what the heck happened? That doesn't make any sense. There's no explanation. And that's where balance comes in, you know? Because myth, that's what, like I was saying, it's that sense of holding on, to your beliefs, and holding on to your beliefs through the generations, and your family believes in it so much, you believe in it so much, you've held on to it so much, that you've learned how to control it. You've learned how to summon what you believe in. You learn how to use that to your advantage. And then balance, on the other hand, is there to control that. You know, I mean, if balance, hypothetically, theoretically, not saying that balance is more powerful than other schools, although as far as being overpowered, it kind of is, but it does have its disadvantages as well. I'm going to give them that. That sense, that balance, you know, it's that overall watchdog. It's like, okay, if balance wasn't there, then this whole spiral, there would be absolutely no equilibrium. There would be no balance involved. Everything would be more or less like the school of myth. And honestly, if you think about it, myth and balance are complete and total opposites as for their personalities and, you know, what they actually stand for, the emotions involved in their school. They are complete and total opposites. Alright, now I'm gonna go ahead and explain star, moon, sun, and then I'm gonna do shadow. So, and then I'll end the video. The star school of magic. If you think about it, whenever you look at the star school of magic, right, you see this school that's like, okay, it's beautiful. There's, you know, planets orbit stars, right? It's, now these explanations for the astral schools will probably be pretty short. Stars, right? It's like you worship the stars almost. Like you worship the sun god Ra, right? Except that spell is balance, you know, blah, 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 blah. But if you think about it, you worship the sun god Ra. And the sun god Ra, if he was actually a boss that we had to fight, if you think about it hard enough, he'd probably be a sun boss, you know? It gives the sense that the sun, you know, it gives that sense of worshiping a sun. It gives that sense of worshiping something that's bright and something that's, you know, it's meaningful. Obviously, a sun is more meaningful than a star, because a star can just be some random blob of light and fire and gases out in space. You know, it could be a sun, but that's only if it had planets and other things that needed it to support them. But if it's just a star out in space and there's no planets orbiting it, there's no comets around it or whatever, there's no meaning to it. Sun has that sense of meaning, and that sense of, if this sun was not here, there would be no survival. You know, the sun may be a star, but this star or the sun has a purpose. Now from there I'm going to go to star, obviously, because star, while the sun has a purpose, star does not have a purpose. Star's purpose is more random than anything else. It's not quite that. Now, obviously, I'm not going to quite look at the spells on you know, the astral schools or even the shadow spells. Well, actually, I will be looking at the spells for shadow school, but for the astral schools, I won't, because you have to think of the name of the school more than the spells to be able to find the emotion in these. Sun, it's that you know, it's that meaning to it. It has meaning to it. It has meaning. That sun has meaning. The reason that star is there, it's not random. It has meaning to it. You know. Now, whenever you look at star spells, let me see if I can get an example. If you look at sun spells, so for example, sun spells are more direct, right? You put them on your spells. They are more direct than anything else. It's almost as if our spells are the planets, and you know, the sun that's supporting those planets are these sun spells. Whenever you put a gargantuan on Tempest, for example, Tempest automatically it gains plus 225 damage, right? The sun spell is supporting Tempest, right? It's not a background support, it's direct, right? Now, if you think about it, a sun gives off light, right? The sun gives off light, and that light shines down on our wonderful planet of Earth, and it probably does in the spiral too, because there's light here. Now, that's a direct one, right? You directly put that spell on there. Whenever you think about star, it loses its purpose. Star is basically sun, but more random, more without purpose, and the light from a star is not, from a random star, is not as direct as the light from a sun. So that's why whenever you put the spells, you put a sun spell onto your spell, that sun spell is put onto that spell. It's not this big bubble that goes around you that counts for every spell that you use. It counts directly for one spell. These spells, they have time limits, right? Like for 4 rounds. So for example, if you look up into the night sky, for one season, for 4 months or so, you'll see a star in the sky, right? You see a star in the sky. And then another season goes by, 4 more months, 4 more rounds. See the connection there? 4 more months. And then those stars are gone. Those stars are no longer there. You can't see them anymore. AKA, the star spell disappears. Think of each round as a month whenever you think of the star spells, alright? They're less direct also. It's more time than, because the sun, it's going to sit there and it's going to constantly shine light on you unless something blocks it, right? Stars, on the other hand, it takes time for the light from a star. It takes way more time for the light from an indirect star to get to your planet. It takes more time, right? The light from our sun to Earth takes about 8 minutes. 8 minutes for the light from the sun, from our sun to reach Earth. It takes years, maybe even thousands of years, depending on how many light years away, the star is. It takes a whole bunch of years for the light from another star to reach planet Earth because it is indirect. It is far away. And that's why there's those gaps in time where we can't see those stars, because the light has not reached Earth yet. And once it does, then those stars light up. We see them, right? Every now and then, there's even, there's nights where it's cloudy and there's supposed to be stars there, but there's no stars because it's cloudy. And then, there's even those nights where there's no clouds, but there's also no stars, because the light has to reach Earth. Now, I'm going to go to Moon, obviously. Now, whenever I look at the Moon School, I get more of a sense of a calm form of light. So the moon reflects, right? The moon reflects the light from the sun. The moon reflects the light from a star down to Earth, right? The moon has that light, but it acts like a mirror kind of, right? Yeah. So whatever the moon sees, whatever is in front of the moon, it reflects back. So whenever you look into a mirror, right, there's this light or whatever, you look into a mirror, you see yourself. Now, think of the school of Moon as if we were pointing that giant moon, and we were pointing it, instead of the sun being pointed at the moon, we had this, we had a cat thug from Marleybone, and it was pointing at the moon, and the moon was reflecting that cat thug at us, so we officially look like the cat thug. Instead of it being light being reflected, it's the cat thug being reflected. So instead of how light, if light wasn't being reflected from the moon at nighttime, from the sun, then there wouldn't be any light on Earth at that point. Unless we had our lights on, right? Now, it's that same idea. Instead of light, it's reflecting the cat bandit. So we turn into the cat bandit. And then eventually, the moon goes away. The sun comes up and the moon goes away, so this moon spell disappears. Think of it like that, alright? And then I'm going to move to Shadow, and then I'm going to end this video. The School of Shadow is that sense. It's almost like Storm, except the thing about Shadow is it's more learning that if you if you make deals with whatever's in the dark, it's not going to turn out well for you. If you make deals with the devil, you're always going to have to give something back. And if you look at spells like Shadow Strike, you give your health back, unless you don't use the entire duration of that spell. If you don't use all of your Shadow spell, you don't owe anything because you didn't use it all. The Shadow spell has 3 rounds. And so let's take Shadow Strike for example. If you blade up for 3 rounds, your Shadow Strike likes those blades. It gives you spears and things to boost your attack, and then once you attack, you do extra damage and you get that boost in Pierce. But then there's the deal with the devil part, and the devil is gonna come and collect. He's gonna do you some damage or the backlash. Now, the thing about it is, especially whenever you look at the backlash, what happens if you don't cast a spell for 1 round for the Shadow Strike? Nothing happens. Your backlash doesn't increase and your backlash doesn't go down, because it would be unfair if hypothetically, theoretically, if we were making a deal with the devil. Now, honestly, if you think about a deal with the devil, you don't think about something that's fair. But honestly, if you've read any of the stories or whatever, the devil doesn't usually, like in the stories, he doesn't lie about it. The devil doesn't lie about what deals that he or she makes. The devil, it's simply put, the devil, okay, whenever the devil asks for your soul, right, you don't want to give your soul away. That's something that's like precious to you. So it's like, okay, I don't want to do this. I'm not gonna make a deal with you. It's like, okay,